Hey, what's up? Today we are joined by my good friend BJJ black belts Ruben Alvarez, who was a massive competitor back in the day, now does law enforcement, and there's nothing wrong with that. And also my good friend Juan Rodriguez, who's a Renzo Gracie black belt. We're going to talk about Eddie Bravo, Jiu-Jitsu, and a bunch of other cool stuff. Stick around. That should be a thing. It should be like Santa Claus. Right? Like if you're a new jiu-jitsu person in a school, like up until you get to be like a 3-stripe white belt, you have to believe in Lahanato Laraj. Like you tell story, everyone's school's got a picture of them, right? Like that could be some big funny shit, man. Like, and you can see how long you keep it going for.
When he first came out, I told everyone in the academy, and it was so hilarious. His first couple of videos, and his show, the Nato Laraj show, was some hilarious.
Well, I remember in the mastering the rubber guard instructional. Remember that? Like
But
Eddie puts him to sleep.
Yeah, I was there for that, man. I was one of the ones that carried him out.
Oh, there you go.
That was one that carried him out. It was me, Epstein, I forget who else carried him out the back door.
Yeah, Epstein's another good dude.
Yeah, dude, there's some fucking OGs. I remember, Epstein was one of the first 10th Planet guys. I was like 5 months after Epstein. I think Eddie just opened the school like 6 or 7 months, because it was the bomb squad days back before anything else. That was back in the day. But that's crazy to see, like, especially like how big like Eddie has gotten since like 2000. Like his Horler win, everyone thought that was like the big thing and it was going to digress. And now it's in the EBI and like it's fucking insane. Like he's got a humongous
even
brand.
the second match with Hoyler.
Yeah, that's true.
He did really good in the second match with Hoyler. Like he was pushing the pace the whole time.
Hoyler didn't look like he got any better at anything. That's the thing. Like Eddie's always like, because he's a huge pothead, and I'll say like he's very creative, and he'll try shit. Like students will fuck around with shit all the time, and he'll be like, "Let me try that. No, if it works, great. And if not, fine." But like I looked at Hoyler and I just felt like I just didn't think he had a good like. If you've ever trained with Eddie or those gi pants, lockdown and gi pants is fucking death. And I heard that Eddie said Hoyler made him wear those, which I thought was he thought he could maybe exploit passing his guard better. But I'm like, because Eddie's lockdown is fucking death. It's really death to get out of, and it's just such a simple thing.
It just looks to me like that's a position that Eddie's been a billion times in. And how many times has Hoyler been defending it? Like it's a positional thing for sure that Eddie just executed, I think, his strategy into finding that, and again he just kept exploiting it and going even deeper and deeper into the next transition when things weren't necessarily working right away.
That was probably the most frustrating thing, because I think like when you roll with the same people consistently, like you start to like know how that roll is going to go, because they evolve the same way. That's what used to drive me crazy about when I'd roll with Eddie, because I'd always just get caught in half guard, and like I could stalemate out the time if I wanted to, but then what the fuck was I really doing for that 6 minutes, right? Just hanging out and going cool. But like you couldn't do anything. If I tried to like exploit anything or try any escapes, I get swapped or something. Like, son of a bitch. This is such a powerful situation. What do you think Hoyler could have done better to overcome the diversity of Eddie?
Hoyler's a legend. Like, guy's really, really good. But just is always evolving. The thing I see with Eddie is that he's always learning from his guys. So he's like, he'll go to Nate Orchard, ask him like, show me the dead orchard. He'll go to Boogie, ask Boogie to show him like the Jersey hook thing that, or that Japanese necktie that Boogie's good at, and then you'll go to Gio and ask him what Gio's doing, and then you got a bunch of other dudes coming up, so he's like learning new stuff that they're good at and trying that, rather than Hoyler. I think all his guys have the same game, which is that traditional jiu-jitsu, which is great, it helps, but it's evolution, man. How are you going to be able to stop like barambolos and things like that unless you're trying it and having guys do it to you? Cross training too is big. Like, you saw Eddie was with John Jack a lot, and then he was going to his other guys' gyms, and stuff like that. And he's got a whole network of guys that are good at their own things. So,
yeah, he's got like a ton of them too. And that's like the whole like the communal knowledge from so many, and they're all such like active competitors in the no-gi space too. That was one of the things when I was training there with Eddie, was like, it was the way I found him was I called John Jack Machado's, and I was like, hey, I was in town to fight. Like I was in town like a few weeks. I was going to fight Adrian Serrano, and I needed like a no-gi place to train. And they're like, well, we only do no-gi like twice a week here. So you should go to Eddie's though. He's right down the street. And that's kind of how I found Eddie. But like now there's schools that just train no-gi outside of 10th Planet. But like back then it was like, you couldn't find the fucking no-gi school ever.
Yeah, 2 of my black belts are opening up a gym in the Kendall area, and they're just really doing more no-gi than gi. I'll probably have gi like 2 times a week, but the rest is going to be no-gi.
Because it was like taboo for a while, right? Like it was like, oh, this is the martial art. If you didn't know, now it's being respected as its own kind of parallel martial art in the grappling space.
Yeah.
And I think like even in that sense, Eddie was ahead of his time. Eddie back then was the one who said, no, we're only going to do no-gi in this school and look to what that developed. But yeah, I mean, just not that long ago, it was most academies that you knew about would do gi 90% of their training, and no gi most of the time was like, all right, we take the gi off and we roll. It wasn't really that you were specifically strategizing no gi ideas.
Right. Yeah.
Or drilling.
Yeah, I also heard that 10 Planet also has a gi curriculum as well, and not a lot of people know about that.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
I think we're getting punked. No, this is a 10th Planet Easter egg, right?
Legit, 10 Planet Black Belt told me that
That's cool.
Eddie has a gi curriculum.
I mean, it would make
That makes
sense, right? Like, why miss out on that untapped market and something? Like, if he puts out a course, someone's gonna get it for sure. How do you adapt rubber guard to no-gi or to gi? So, like, I think that we did a gi day one time at 10th Planet when I was there. Like, everybody, and half of the guys had never even fucking trained in a gi, so that was just hilarious. But it's such a different world, man. It's such a slow. Like, I personally, like, as you get older, it's easier to train gi versus no gi because you innately slow down, and I feel my joints and like my brain. I'm like, I'm still 25. My body's like, the fuck you are, you know? Like,
see, I feel the opposite. Like, I'm getting older now, and I feel like no gi's better for me than gi.
Really? Why is that?
Because the arthritis in my hands, making the gi grips, you know, constantly. If I go with a bigger person, they're most likely gonna, be able to make better grips and, toss me around if they want to. No gi, I can actually control the scrambles and the holds, rather than in gi. It's like, guy does one break and then my finger's like pointing the other way. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, but I guess like from a competitive point of view though, right? Like it would probably be do you think you could compete longer no gi or gi?
I think it really depends on the training partners and how you train. If you're going balls to the walls every day training, longevity's going down. If you're picking the right training partners and stuff like that, like how many times have we gone to the gym and you're like, hey, who are you going to roll with? I'm like, I'm not rolling with any spazzy white belts today. I'm not getting hurt. I roll with the small blue belts, the purple belts, go with them. And then some days I'm like, man, I don't feel good. Give me whoever you got. It's all about knowing your body and when to read it. When you're young, when I was like 17, 18-year-old competitor, I was like, I didn't even warm up. I just walked on the mat and rolled a bunch and was fine, was able to go out and have fun and then come back and roll again. Now it's like I got to take a pre-workout before I go into the gym. I got to talk to myself. I got to listen to like Metallica on the way in or something like that.
You got to pump yourself up.
Yeah, like I got to get ready for training, It's like I just finished a 9 to 5. I got to go train now, and find that energy. And then you walk in there and, you stretch out a little bit and you're like, hey, this knee feels a little weird today. This shoulder feels a little weird. All right, who am I going to roll with? Well, I'm going to roll with the 145-pound blue belt. That way I could just do technique and not get hurt.
Yeah.
And not roll with the 220-pound guy that's spazzing out or the super skinny guy that doesn't know where his elbows and knees are at, and then you get sliced up.
I think competition, like I would say competitors in the no-gi will also last longer, because if you were only in this idea to pick one of each, so those guys who compete gi at the highest level all the time, like Ruben said, their hands and grips had to be destroyed. When you see at that high level, the kind of pressure, how they stack you and pin you, and the pressure that you take to not get your guard passed, that's gotta be rougher in the body than I mean, no-gi is very rough too. But in that sense, in like the longevity of it, I would say no-gi has to be.
Yeah, I think as MMA has gotten more popular too and more mainstream, people have gravitated towards no-gi more. I remember there was a time, you guys probably remember this too, like the guy, as soon as the fights would hit the ground, people would start booing because they didn't understand what the fuck they were seeing. Yeah, stand them up. You don't give a shit, unless you were BJ Penn.
Yeah, I remember in high school, like people, I told them I did jiu-jitsu and they're like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's like wrestling with submissions," And then I would just say submission wrestling. I wouldn't even tell them jiu-jitsu.
That was your intro? See, I used to always say, well, come here, I'll show you, lay between my legs. And that was just not a good start.
Yeah, you look at another man in his eyes and you tell him to get in between your legs.
I'm
like, what?
But that was like the first thing I think I learned was like guard stuff right back in like the mid-90s. I was like, oh, let me show you how cool it is.
People just looking at you like, come on. What are you talking about?
I would like to hear the stories. How did you guys first find jiu-jitsu? And like, at what point were you like, okay, this is some legitimate shit, not karate, not the taekwondo, not the, hapkido. This is it.
I'll let Juan go first.
Oh, I found jiu-jitsu at age 22, 23. But I did other martial arts before. I did judo, I did aikido, I did karate, I did kempo, and loved them. If anything, I ended up kind of like changing because of having to move or, situations like that. And I found jiu-jitsu in 2007 with Professor Stan Beck in Weston in Hensos. And I walked out into the academy thinking, this is something cool. You see it on TV, you see it on MMA. It seems like something you have to learn, not necessarily thinking, you're going to be really good at it or a specialist. And just hooked class one. And first week, first month, I bought into everything about it. The fighting, the philosophy, the lifestyle.
The fake Brazilian accent.
Everything. Not yet. I didn't get to Renato until like 2011, dude. But back then it was just, again, it changed my life. I haven't done anything since.
Yeah, same thing. Lifelong martial artist. Dad had me in karate when I was little, and then did soccer, baseball, all that stuff. And then, I got like really overweight in like middle school, and then I was getting like bullied, and I would fight the bullies back, but I didn't know how to fight, so I'd get my ass kicked. And then there was a flyer, like a highlighter yellow flyer that was going around my school. My grandmother grabbed it and said, Aikido, attention Aikido. And I was like, oh, Aikido, cool. What's Aikido? And I asked my dad, and he's like, oh, that's the stuff Steven Seagal does. I'm like, yeah, Steven Seagal, Out for Justice, Under Siege.
Yeah, he knows everything. Yes.
I'm like, I wanna go under that. Turns out, the instructor that ran it, his name was George Angulo. He was a 5th degree black belt under Steven Seagal. And he learned from Seagal for a while and all that stuff. And then he also did jiu-jitsu. He was a blue belt under Mike Cardozo. So I did Aikido for a little bit, and then he would teach a little bit of jiu-jitsu. And I was like, all right, this ground stuff's legit. Then one day we're sitting in his gym in the dojo, and he shows me this video of Gracie's in action. And I'm watching Hoyce just beat up a bunch of dudes. I'm watching Hoyler beat up a bunch of dudes. I'm watching Hickson on the beach, like just mess up that dude. And I'm like, I look at him, I go, hey, can these guys kick your ass? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing Aikido for? I need to be doing this shit. So, I ended up training for a little bit with his instructor, Mike Cardozo. He would come Tuesdays and Thursdays and teach at the Aikido gym. So I'd learn from him for a little bit. And then Mike went and he was one of the original owners of FFA, a freestyle fighting academy with the Avalon brothers and Enrico Coco and all those guys. And then he separated and started his own thing called Extreme MMA. So I didn't really have anywhere to train, so I went into the Valente brothers for a little bit under a guy named Carlos Valares, who's a black belt under Pedro and Guillermo Valenche. And I trained with him for a little bit, and then Carlos moved, and then I trained for like 6 months with George Masvidal for a little bit at FFA. So George was teaching at the Aikido gym Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I would learn from George. And
George was teaching at an Aikido school?
Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
What was George Masvidal teaching?
He was just like teaching boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. It was an affiliation program with FFA.
This is before he had done. So he'd done pro fights
before he did the backyard fights. Like he was
before backyard fights.
He was like 3-0, like pro MMA. He was just starting out.
It's back in the day.
Yeah, like
it's before Bellator. That's what I meant. It was Bellator.
Yeah, way before even Bodog fights.
Before Bodog too.
Before Bodog, okay. Yeah. And I trained with him for a little bit, and then I competed under FFA for a little bit, and then Mike ended up opening his gym, and I went to Mike's because it was close to my house. So I trained full time with Mike Cardozo. I got all the way up to purple belt, and then there was a big split in the gym. A lot of the competitors and stuff, they all like left or got jobs or whatever, and it was just me and a couple like white and blue belts, and I was purple belt competing at like the expert levels and stuff, going against black belts and brown belts. So I ended up meeting Roberto Cyborg Abreu when he was in a small gym on Alton Road and in South Beach. Trained with him for a few years, trained a little bit under Wagner Rocha, and then I had a split from the Fight Sports VRMA team and went over to Tom DeBlass now, and I've been with Tom for like 6-7 years now.
Tom's gonna be on the. When's Tom gonna be on the show? Tuesday? Yeah. This coming Tuesday, right? Yeah. Yeah, Tuesday, right? I think it's Tuesday. Tom.
Yeah, so under Tom DeBlass now. I've been under him for about 5 or 6 years now, maybe a little bit more.
I like Tom's like one of the guys that the more I read, most people's Instagram posts, they're just like self-flagery. Like it's like fucking, I don't want to watch. Tom's like one of the few guys whenever he posts, I like take a minute to read it because like you could tell he like genuinely just has like a good heart. Like he's like a family guy.
He messages everybody back, and he's helped a lot of dudes out. You know?
For sure.
So when I went through the split, he helped me out, and he took me under his wing, and he gave me my stripes. He gave me my first degree and my second degree. So, he's been nothing but a good dude to me. We won't even talk for like months on end, and he'll just send me random texts. Hey, you good? Yeah, I'm good. Need anything? No, I'm good. You need anything? No. All right, cool. Talk to you next time. But always supporting each other.
That's good. Yeah, Tom DeBlass has had his fingerprints on a lot of guys' games, like from that whole Henzo, like expanded East Coast family there, from Gary Tonin to Gordon Ryan, you and all those guys. Tom's been unless you're like a huge jiu-jitsu nerd, some people don't really know who Tom DeBlass is unless they're like really into like doing the backgrounds on the Gary Tonins and how these guys trained and stuff. But Tom's an OG, man.
And he's been in Abu Dhabi and done amazingly too. Like not only a great teacher, but a great competitor himself.
Yeah, great solid dude. He's not one of those that he fakes the funk on Instagram and in real life. He's not the same dude.
Yeah, no.
That's one dude I wouldn't want to like be him being mad at me, you know, like
you
know what I'm saying? Like,
I got like a voicemail from him. I can see, but like he sounds so. I gotta listen to his.
He's got the Jersey accent.
Yeah, like I gotta pull up one of the Tom DeBlass Jersey.
I'll open the door for him, sir. Please go ahead.
Tom DeBlass Jersey accent here. Let's just see if I can. Let's see if we can just.
Can you do Tuesday or Thursday, like anytime earlier? Like anytime between like 10 and like 12? Why don't we do next Tuesday?
You can tell he's driving. Yeah. He's sending that message, bro. He's always like driving either at the academy or something like that, and he tries to get back to everybody. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. He stays busy. I totally brain farted that he was coordinating the ADCC trials. Right. He's like, man, I'm doing I want to like, let's figure something out, but I'm doing ADC this weekend. And I was like, good luck. I didn't even fucking like later I'm like, oh, I was like, because my thought was like, he's still going after it after all these years, like representing for us older cats.
But, and I saw him ref on everything too.
Yeah,
so
no,
like, he was all in.
He wasn't competing.
I know.
He organized it. He runs
he's the organizer now. He retired from competition.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But I didn't. When he first said he's like, I'm doing ADCC this weekend, the trials.
Like, oh crap!
I was like, you're doing the trials this weekend. I didn't realize he's actually fucking doing the trials. Like, God, what a fucking headache. How many like? It's nuts to see like. You look back at like some of the goofballs that were like winning the first like few Abu Dhabis, or just in terms of like how good they were compared to the level of talent that's coming out now, even on the trials levels. Like, holy shit, is like the knife sharpening the iron sharpening iron, huh?
The growth is exponential.
It's crazy.
Like now you're seeing 16, 17-year-olds that are moving. Like we've been seeing very few people moving competition.
That 16-year-old just won the trials.
The call bats.
Yeah.
You know, insane. And I mean, all those guys coming out of the art of Jiu-Jitsu Academy, you know, what's the older one, the black belt who's now winning everything, who was the purple superstar, brown belt superstar. His name
Mikey Musumici's winning a bunch of stuff.
No, from Matos.
From the Rutello
Oh
twins.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Is the Rutello twins?
No, but they're from the art of Jiu-Jitsu, I'm saying.
Yeah, someone's been in the chat room like with this name, like you guys are
dude, it's
you guys are shitty. You didn't know this guy.
Dude, you know what?
There's so many.
I don't keep up with the jiu-jitsu scene anymore. You know, I'm just so busy with work. I barely watch jiu-jitsu. I'll see like a couple of things on Flow Grappling, and I'm like, holy crap, it's evolved so much. Because when we started jiu-jitsu, it was like for fights.
Yeah, and there were and like 80% of the guys that were the guys had the last name Gracie, so you'd hear that and you go, wait, who was which one of the Gracies was fighting? But like now, yeah, it's insane. It's just like the UFCs. You know, there was a point where you'd say there was a UFC on, we top to bottom, you know, everyone on the card you were excited from. Now I'm like, people are like, whoa, did you watch the UFC this weekend? I'm like, bro, I probably haven't watched a fight for 3 years, man. Like, unless it was like a big name, like a title fighter, or like exactly, like Masvidal's fighting, or like if
the
it's
roster is so big, so deep, it's insane.
It's bananas.
Hey, that black belt was a Tainan Dalpar. That guy is winning.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I have no clue who that is. So he's good at jiu-jitsu, I hear.
He's really good.
He's really good. That's what's crazy too, is like you think like the guys like if you were going into martial arts or you going into college, right, and you played football or you were athletic, you had a certain career path after college. Wrestling was like the only dead end. Like if I'm a super athlete and I can fucking do football or wrestling, well, football, because maybe. Now guys are like, well, not only MMA, but maybe if I get really good at this, I can make a living, because Gordon Ryan's claiming to make millions of dollars a year from grappling. And you know, if the sport, why the fuck is the sport not how do we not have jiu-jitsu in the fucking Olympics, man? that boggles my mind. Have you seen the shit that's in the fucking Olympics?
I mean, it's all political. If you look at it, anything political, with any organization, it's all politics. You just have to eventually. One day somebody's going to come in the Olympics and be like, yeah, jiu-jitsu is going to be there. And we've read the articles where jiu-jitsu slated to be in the Olympics, but it hasn't happened yet.
I wonder why though, because like jiu-jitsu is a huge community and it's a pretty financially affluent community. You look at like all the sheiks and there's so much money and like guys that are connected. Like it seems like if you had to position a sport to have the right relationships and monetary resources to petition and do what you needed to, unless they're just like, do you want to try to fucking drug test all those Brazilians? Like, it's going to be
That's probably another thing why they don't want to do it, and they probably figure out that we already have our own Olympics, which is like the Worlds, the ADCCs, all that stuff, the EBIs and all that, and they can't offer like what like these tournaments are offering cash prize. Like look at EBI.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't know how that would work too, because if you're like the Olympics are supposed to be all amateurs, right? So I mean, I know that there's ways basketball players compete, but like for the most part, you're supposed to be an amateur in the Olympics. So like, I wonder how that would work from a monetization point of view if they got paid.
And if you wanted to watch it in the Olympics, would you watch it in the gi, the no gi? You do both. I know I would rather watch it in the no gi for sure.
I rather no.
But I'm saying, then do you do both out of like, okay, this is jiu-jitsu gi, jiu-jitsu no gi, or we call it open grappling? What do we do?
I think that we're just so excited to get some grappling in there that isn't fucking knee waza from judo for 10 seconds before they stand you up. If it's got to be gi, I'm gonna be like, you know what, I can live with this. Like we're making headway. It's just crazy that it's still not. They tried to get MMA, which is nuts too, because like pancration was like the first fucking actual Olympic sport, and then we did the full circle, and it's like not there anymore. But we got to get jiu-jitsu in the Olympics. We're going to start a petition right now to get jiu-jitsu. There's probably like 1,000 petitions.
Millions. There's got to be so many.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if it's like a global thing. You've heard before the argument of like maybe the IBAF itself not wanting it because you got to, now be under control and all of that. But it wouldn't make sense, man. If you make jiu-jitsu an Olympic level sport, your own organization is going to jump up. So I don't think that argument is bad.
The IBJJF has deep pockets.
They do.
They have very deep pockets.
Maybe they don't want them looking into them. Like, listen,
$160 a tournament. They gotta have deep pockets.
But then, what makes the IBAF the head of like jiu-jitsu? Why can't the Olympic Committee create the Olympic Committee jiu-jitsu? Is it that straightforward that one company who traded market, where the International Jiu-Jitsu Federation gets to decide? I don't think so.
Apple and Samsung. There could be a bifurcation of powers there. Yeah. The IB. God, it's like too many letters. IBBJF, right? Brazilian IBJJF. That's why I never joined. I didn't. I couldn't figure out where to send my check.
I got my black belt card one time, and then they're like, "Hey, $60 renewal." I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm good."
Yeah. Well, the only downside is
I had to get it because if you don't have it, then you cannot have your academy register. Then your competitors cannot register under your academy for IBAF events. So
they can register.
They cannot.
Your competitors can't register
under Hense Gracie for Lauderdale or Juan Rodriguez.
I mean, but like who, like I don't know, like IBBJF. It's good because you get a lot of matches in, but like it's expensive. Like it's fucking so expensive. I did like one. I think I did the Nogi Worlds on IBBJF thing that I ever did, man. And it was like I remember being like fucking mad expensive to get a membership and then pay fees. Like, what a cash grab, right? Mm-hmm. Like you said, the ADCC is like the Olympics, which it is. But the thing that we miss is that sheen of calling it the Olympics and having a medal and gold medal attached. Because, like Gordon Ryan, let's say he's making $2 million a year right now, right, from in seminars. It's probably a safe bet, right around there.
And the videos, right? That's where most the money gotta come from.
The videos, sponsorships, for marketing. He has a shirt coming out, like shorts coming out, rash guards. And jiu-jitsu is the biggest heart of fanboys I've ever seen. So everybody wants to wear, what their favorite grappler's wearing, and that's all good. Like that's cool. Shit, if Gordon gave me a shirt, I'd wear it too. Because he's a buddy. And I would support him and buy a shirt, But he's making a lot of good monetary gains from jiu-jitsu. But look what he had to do. He had to become a bad guy to get all these gains. Like, do
you think that like
played in an act?
Be a showman.
I've only met Gordon a couple times. Do you think that Gordon's, and he was polite and very awesome when I did, so I'll put the disclaimer out there. But like in terms of, if you just look at him from a social media perspective, he comes across a little bit cocky for sure, right? And look, he's the best in the world. Nobody's saying he's not. But do you think that's like the Conor McGregor thing where he's just trying to help sell the image a little more? Or do you think it's just he's also like young, in great shape, a bad motherfucker with money?
I mean, it's making him and his opponent money. So it is what it is. As long as you don't, you could berate my jiu-jitsu, you could berate me as a character. Just don't do it to my family or my friends, and that's fine. It's at the end of the day, it's just words, and if he's making money for myself to grapple him and he wants to talk all the shit he wants about me and make me more money, by all means, keep talking shit about me.
That's true.
Some of these guys don't see that. They get so emotionally invested, like look how big the Andre Galvao and him match for 80cc is right now.
Yeah.
Like it's huge.
The biggest ever.
It's probably like the biggest ever.
I think one championship signed Galvao. I think that they're trying to steal that match.
I let them be too.
But look, now that you have bid offers.
Now let them get paid.
Now you have bid offers. Well, hey, look at Metamoris with Eddie and Hoyler. Look how big that got. So it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember when Gordon was just a purple belt wearing a rubber ducky rash guard, grappling at Grappler's Quest. And nobody knew who the fuck he was. And he hasn't changed to me. He's still the same dude. Like every time I've seen him, he's always been cool with me and he's always been the same Gordon Ryan. Now on Instagram, he's got to make his money, man. Yeah. And I'm all for it. And another thing too is, if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. Yeah. Like when he told Galvao to back away or I'm going to slap the shit out of you. You slapped the shit out of him twice.
Well, even the other side of the coin, what about calling the triangle with like Wagner Rocha? How fucking insane is that to be able to do that at such a high level guy? That's like some sniper shit.
I mean, if you see the way that him and the Danaher guys train, they're so confident in their jiu-jitsu because they know how to systematically approach these guys. Like they study them, and they make it their profession. They're like professionals. Like they study tape. They do this. It's not just, like how we go and just flow. They're not flowing. They're systematically breaking you down. Yeah.
It's really crazy how John has brought it to like a whole new level. We'll talk about that in a second. But the thing I was making, the idea with like the 80cc versus the Olympics and why I think it is important that we're in the Olympics is because if you're the Olympic gold medalist now, that sponsorship money is 10 times what
you're getting taxed.
I'd rather get taxed 50% on 20 million than 30% on 2 million.
But we don't know how much they're, because I remember I saw like for like the wrestlers, they were getting this and that, and they have to really go off with the endorsements, like like how many Olympic like athletes do you see like, oh yeah, McDonald's, I'm loving it. Yeah. When do you see like,
because the Americans don't win any fucking Olympics
when do you
anymore.
See that? When do you see them eating a Big Mac before training?
Yeah,
they're not loving it. They're loving the cash. You know, so they have to do that to be able to get monetary gains. But you don't see a lot of rich Olympians.
No way.
But then 80cc, hey man, you won first place. Cool hard 60 G's, come and grapple the best dudes. You get the belt and you get to come back and you have the bragging rights 80cc champ.
Yeah, well, I think
and you ain't getting taxed.
Super fun. Yeah.
I think what's even more important now is like the ability, like because you're able to monetize through the digital media properties so quickly. Like the brand is so like if you won 80cc and you had to pay 50 grand, you'd probably pay the tax to win 80cc just so you could be like, I'm the champ. And I can use that as a credential because these guys are making so much money off. I think like Jeff Glover, who hasn't been an active competitor in a while. I think, and he said that on the show, made like 50 grand just from Jeff Glover, who's a stud, but like he's not like, if you say name 3 jiu-jitsu guys, like right now he's not competing, right? So like imagine the guys like the Craig Jones and the guys that are like actively out there, like God bless, they're probably raking it in. So it's
you got rich guys wanting to teach at their gyms, like, hey, I'll build you this gym, just come and teach, and I'll pay you a salary, just for your name. I wasn't like that 12, 13 years ago,
It's crazy to think like how much better can jiu-jitsu get? Because
I think a lot better than.
But like then, so if you see like there's light at the end of the tunnel, but well then how do we not know what that is? Like I almost feel like on some level we don't know what the next level of jiu-jitsu is.
Do you want to see something cool between a bunch of jiu-jitsu guys?
Yeah.
Throw a shock knife in between a bunch of jiu-jitsu guys. You'll see a good match.
I've seen. You ever seen with the shock knives, the edges, they fucking zap you.
Yeah, like my jiu-jitsu has changed dramatically from like competing for like getting ready for 80ccs and stuff like that to now like fighting for edge weapons, firearms, stuff like that. You get to really see how like systematically you approach your jiu-jitsu now and how primitive you get too. Like it's not like as flowy as you would think. Now you're really using your head. You're using like your
literally.
Yeah. Like you're pushing your head in, you're doing a lot of crazy things, And I learned this from Craig Douglas from Shivworks, he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu and he has the company called Shivworks, which they do stuff like that. And he goes, dude, you want to see like a good jiu-jitsu match? just throw a shock knife or a rubber knife in between rolls. And he goes, I do it all the time in my gym. And I watch these like dudes that are doing barambolos, bro. They're like grabbing the knives and like trying to barambolo and do crazy stuff. And he goes, it's crazy, dude. And you see how they fight for that knife. They get so like fixated on that blade. Or, you know, you throw like a little like, you know, sim gun with like the paint rounds. And you watch dudes fight for it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
What was the biggest takeaway? Like, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make?
I didn't want to be on the bottom too much. You know, I always wanted to be on top. You know, trapping and holding. You know, knowing when I can and cannot, you know, do things. You know, it's not as flowy as, you know, regular jiu-jitsu is like butterfly guard, you know, half guard, you know.
Right.
It's a constant, like, you know, now you have another thing you have to be worried about.
Are you always, obviously you're concerned about your sidearm, but are you actively protecting it during like a full altercation, or are you more worried about restraining and you're just being cognizant of the fact that you have
Well, you know, it's like, I'm being cognizant of where it's at all times, but I'm also worried about what the other guy has, because I don't know what he has in his waistband, what he's doing either. So now I have to look at his hand, you know, try to like, you know, touch the dude, feel like any type of like, you know, bulges of a knife or a gun, you know, not the excitement bulge, but, you know, things like that. And figure out what's going to happen next. You know, what am I going to do now? Am I going to try to get to the back? Am I going to try to do this? You see a lot of sport moves don't really work. So it's crazy. It opened my eyes up a lot, you know.
Is there a big emphasis on like chokes over joint manipulation, or is it pretty split?
I mean, usually I'm trying to get more control than anything like that. I'm not trying to, you know, do strangles or, you know, small joint manipulation. I'm just trying to, you know, establish where, you know, I have them pinned where I could do something to my, you know, advantage.
Like cuff them or just
not even that, just like hold them, pin them. You know, it's not really much of a, like a cuffing thing. It's more of like, you know, fighting, getting double underhooks, you know, trapping one arm, you know, holding that arm, you know, where's this other arm at? What's around me? What tools do I have? You know, it's pretty crazy.
That sounds like fun.
It is. It is. I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. And then I started doing it, you know, for work. And I'm like, that shit's fun.
Yeah, and it's a real skill too. Like that's one of the things. Like when I like the Krav Maga, we'll talk about that for a second. Like the Krav Maga that I saw here when I did Human Weapon and I went to Israel, I had a completely different respect for Krav Maga, because it's like the jiu-jitsu you learn in like you know, fucking some DVD versus like the jiu-jitsu you're learning or you're teaching in law enforcement. That's real practical shit, not like this is the stuff that makes seminars.
Because I remember on your episode, I was a kid watching it, and I remember.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I gotta remind you.
I was really young when you were old.
I remember you like double legged some dude. The chick was on the show, right? There's like an Israeli chick.
There's always chicks on the show too.
Well, you know, I meant like a frat. I meant like an
one
Israeli,
way or another.
There was like
chicks.
There was like a female Israeli combatives instructor or something like that. I remember you just
Possibly.
double legged the dude. Like you double legged one dude, and then the other guy just came in. And was like,
Oh, that was at the end.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. For a second there, I was like, is he confusing my show with Fight Quest? Because that happens all the fucking time.
No.
People are like, bro, I loved your show, Fight Quest. I'm like, I just stopped correcting. I'm like, thank you very much. Thank you.
No.
Yeah. That was, well, it was interesting because, like, you know, there's one of the things that I really gravitated towards from a martial arts perspective is that we get really focused on, like, most people want to learn just the technical, physical aspects of the martial arts. And it's easy to not talk about or think about like the psychology of, you know, like if I'm fighting you versus I'm fighting you and I got to protect my daughter, that's a different fucking scenario. You got to think about, like, you know, and like, that's something I think that even when I try to teach, I try to talk to the guys about, like, hey, you know, being on your back in the street sucks. You might want to think about like jumping to your back, you know, and it's a boot stomping contest. Or like we work off of the walls. And it's funny because I was talking to Gary Tonin and he was like, yeah, I just started working off the cage because nobody, you know, shows that in jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, got our guys at Henzo's doing it already, because look, there's a fucking wall everywhere in this room, right? You know, like your jiu-jitsu stops working here. Yeah. You know, so like, what are some of the things you think? Do you think these schools need to teach more kind of all-encompassing aspects, or do you think they're pigeonholed by keeping it kind of neat and pretty? That's a question.
It's really, I look at it as like mission specific. Like, what are you doing in your life right now? Are you an active jiu-jitsu competitor that just constantly is competing on a mat and not really worrying about, like, you know, self-defense stuff? By all means, keep doing that. If you want to add in a little bit of self-defense just for preservation status, like if you're walking down the street or something, cool too. But you're a competitor. You want to start competing, you got to be the best. You got to put all your time into it. You know, like for me now, it's like I'm not a competitor anymore. So when guys always ask me, hey, are you going to compete soon? No. You know, I'm on a different mission set now in my life where it's more my job. Now my goal is just make it home at the end of shift.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does make a lot of sense what the end game result is. But I mean, Juan, you own a martial arts school. The average person that walks in, out of 10 people that walk in, how many of them, I would imagine 80% are there because I want to learn self-defense. And then there's a couple that either didn't know they wanted to be competitors, like the Renees, and then you can't get the kid out of the freaking gym. Or there's the guys that, you know, if they saw the UFC, you don't want to go be a bad dude. And that's usually the guy that guy gets booted 3 months in or can't hang anyways. Are most of the people that come in, where do you see them kind of line up?
I think I would say a very high number, above 90% come in, with curiosity. Yes, some people think self-defense, but it might be like, I've been an MMA fan for a long time. I've been a martial arts enthusiast and practitioner. And, that's how kind of they find themselves in. What the funny percentage might be is, like you said, how many fall in love in the competitive side, which they probably never thought of themselves they were going to compete day one, but again, they thrive there. How many of them become more like regular, jiu-jitsu practitioners who might compete once or twice or might never compete, but love it, are an integral part of the gym and the community. And then you're right. And then you have the guys that you have your hopes set when they first come in because they look in good shape. Yeah, I want to compete. And 2-3 meetings in, they're like, you know what, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So
it's so rare that a guy like, I was talking to Nicky Rod, and his like 3 weeks in his jiu-jitsu, he won like a black belt tournament.
Yeah, I heard that podcast. That was insane.
Smoked guys. So talented. I'm like, that's like, you're just running over that. That's crazy, because if you ever said, all right, this guy's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, even like the average run-of-the-mill okay black belt, like, you're gonna get your ass beat by a wrestler. I guess at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, I guess it
how
depends
tired
on
did he get him? How tired did he get him?
For sure.
He turtle. He's like, I'm fine. I'm a black belt. I'm gonna turtle. And this kid put hooks, put him belly down.
Took him down 49 times.
I'm just guessing.
Remember, jiu-jitsu is lazy too, man.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is very flowy.
True.
And wrestling is just grit. When have you ever met a lazy wrestler?
No.
Yeah.
Not a good
Not
one.
at a high level.
Not a good
Never
one.
met a lazy wrestler. They all have good work ethic.
Yeah. That's why they did such a good job in MMA transitioning. The guys like Matt Hughes, who didn't put his hands together for years, but just that work ethic and that drive, and that carries over.
The story of Nicky Rod driving like 6 hours a day to go train in Manhattan, like, wow. That's like driving to Orlando to train and coming back to South Florida every day, plus traffic, plus whatever it costs to just go and that's what he said, right? Like, he loved the training there, right? Like, he was like, oh, these guys are gonna challenge me. Like, that's what kind of psycho he is, right? He's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a freaking commitment. The crazy thing now is that, like, the last conversation he and I had, he said that I was asking if the whole split, is that like a real thing or what's, because everyone was like, this is for marketing. And now I truly believe it was like some issues, but whatever the case is, Gordon Ryan's arguably, and I'm a huge Marcelo Garcia fan, but like, I gotta say, okay, Gordon Ryan is the most prolific grappler of my generation. So with a runner-up of Marcelo Garcia,
I think ever.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, yeah, you're probably.
True.
I'm 40. I don't remember. Has jiu-jitsu been around before? When was Ellie? I guess they were doing shit.
I would dare to say he's probably the most talented grappler ever.
You think?
I mean, he's competing at the highest level, match after match, calling up submissions, submitting guys who we don't see get submitted without a lot of effort, and literally doing the moves that he's teaching, right? So it's an advertising tool. I'm gonna teach you from the mount how to pin the guy, blah 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 blah, and he does it, and doesn't seem like he struggles a lot, right? It's not a back and forth that the hero wins at the end.
I think it's just a different era. Like, every era has a great guy. Because remember when Leo Vera came on the scene?
Yeah,
he was the only guy doing cartwheels and like doing like crazy stuff. Or look at Terere. Not a lot of dudes know about Terere and how great that guy was. And then Jacare was one of the best ones too. And then Damian Maya, and then Marcelo.
It seems like everyone.
Roger. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it would be an amazing match to see Hoyer and Gordon at their prime, both. Like, right?
Hoyer and Gordon?
No, Hoyer, Roger Gracie.
Oh, Hodger.
At their greatest, not now. At their greatest, I think it would be a mythical match. I just think he's just so technical, and that's what, like, going back to that conversation about jiu-jitsu. Is jiu-jitsu gonna get better? Yes. 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't share knowledge between academies.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as cross-training.
Right, that's why it
You
stayed
didn't
like
go
that.
to open mats at other schools.
Why are we better today? Because of cross-training, because of YouTube, because of video sharing, and we're getting to this. Now people are creating these systems and these ways of teaching and polishing the knowledge down to these teenagers who've been training for 10 years now. And I think in 10 years, we're like the jiu-jitsu that you watch no-gi nowadays compared to the first Abu Dhabi no-gi, technically, if you're like reviewing it, it's like a whole different level. It's just...
So, if you're like the pressure on a guy like Gordon, right? Like, I mean, on some level, there's a massive amount of confidence because, I mean, you're calling the moves on guys that are fucking murdering 99% of the guys in competitions. So, like, talk about, like, at some point he's got to lose, whether it's 1 week, 1 year, 10 years, 20. I mean, I assume, right? If you compete the longer he competes, the more likely it is. He doesn't have to lose. The more likely it is, right? If you had to see one competitor out there now, do you think that Nicky Rod down the road has the skill set because he trained with him for a long time, maybe knows him or maybe not, or is just too far behind? Do you think that could be a solid threat to Gordon?
For sure. And I think his confidence speaks a lot about what he's doing in the training room, because you also see him cross training. And when he was in New York, some of the most amazing athletes and grapplers would go and train. And again, the what you hear behind closed doors is that he would just play with them. So that's why he's so confident. And as far as Nicky Rod, I could see Nicky Rod with a couple more years of drilling and whatever he's doing, keep doing, getting to a close level. And I'm excited to see also like a Craig Jones match with Gordon. I think Craig Jones is also just an amazing grappler all time,
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that there's someone out there that can give Gordon a run for his money right now, or is that to be determined?
I think it's to be determined, but at the end of the day, Father Time doesn't wait for any man.
Yeah.
It's going to catch up to you eventually. There's always going to be somebody that's going to come that's better, that has the better psyche, I guess, to grapple, sees things differently, reads things differently. And like, styles make matchups, there's probably a style out there that Gordon can't face, or Nicky Rod can't face, or something like that, just right now we haven't seen one. But at the end of the day, those guys are all studs, and they've been.
I mean, Felipe Pena.
Yeah.
Had a very
that's a
nice,
good point.
That's
a good point. How come that match hasn't happened a third time? He beat him twice, right?
He beat him twice. Fucking when defended the outside heel hook to the back both times, rear naked choke, I'm pretty sure. Or did he not tap him the second time around?
I have no idea.
The first time he tapped him, the second time in Abu Dhabi, I think it.
Or vice versa, did he not tap him the first? I don't remember. I think
the first time he tapped him. Gordon got tired. He was sick that week or something.
I don't think he beat him the second. I think it was points or advantage.
Yeah,
it was on the second one, but
it was on the second in the first Abu Dhabi that Gordon went, where he won weight and he lost in the semis against.
Yeah.
So he got gold and silver. I mean, and bronze.
Yeah, because I remember the first match they did at Studio 540.
Yep.
It was like right after Gordon beat Keenan.
Yep.
But I think Gordon was sick that one.
Yeah.
And he still grappled and then lost. But you could tell he wasn't himself. And then the second one was points. But maybe like in a sub only format.
Oof. I don't think Felipe wants that. I think he's like, you know what? I'm 2-0.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because he keeps telling him to put on the gi and stuff, and he's like, dude,
come on.
Yeah.
That's not.
Remember Gordon talked about doing some gi competitions.
There was pictures of
and then he was like,
there was pictures of him training. And
Gordon's good in the gi too, man.
Of
course.
Sure.
I bet
you can't be that good at no gi and suck in the gi. You just can't. You're like your suck is you didn't win like maybe your division in a golden world. Like you got bronze. That's your version of sucking. But yeah, I'm sure he's a stud. Everything translates. No gi translates to gi, right? Like for a big part of that.
Do you think his health issues might play a role into how long his career is, and he's an advanced in jiu-jitsu? Has he been training as hard as he did before? Is that gonna catch up to him too?
I don't know.
And like you said, I agree. We all get older, and at some point you lose the hunger for a little bit. Something it's gonna happen.
That's what I think is more concerned is the guys that I see fall off at high level competitions. It's usually if it's not a catastrophic injury like a career ender, it's usually a mental thing. They're just like they don't want to
burned out.
They're just fucking burned out.
It's hard being at the top.
And the thing that too, like from an MMA perspective, I think that really it breaks my heart the most is that guys that the other one is the one that nobody talks about is like the guys that are getting addicted to fucking opioids and painkillers only because they sacrificed, not because these guys are drug addicts. They never touched I'm not going to say these, but like these guys that haven't touched drugs in their lives and were in the top 5 in the UFC got an injury and got put on fucking drugs. Yeah. And they're like fucking jonesing for them, and it changes everything. It's crazy. Luckily that hasn't been like a thing that we've really heard about in the jiu-jitsu community. We've got steroids locked down there. So although they test now, right? Is USADA testing, or who's the governing body?
So now IBAF in the World Championships, I'm pretty sure they test the podium. So they don't test every athlete because again, that's not gonna make sense for them. But they test the podium, and it has happened in the past that people get their medal taken away.
Osima took like remember he took like one of the old like.
Yeah, he said that after he won the goal, he had someone get
And my acai parto is too strong from a GNC.
But it wasn't even steroids. It was like DMAA, you know, and that was on everything. It was on like Jack 3D or something. He took like a pre-workout Jack 3D.
Oh, really? Just like one of those like that, like a trace of some remnant of some shit that was like a molecule similar to.
Yeah, and he popped, you know.
There's been a few.
You know, and I don't blame Braulio even if he did take juice, man. That dude snapped his neck in half, got a pin put in there, and dude, you're gonna have to take something to keep your body in shape. Recover from that.
And that was post that. That was after that happened.
They should bring back Pride and let everyone just juice to the fucking hilt. Just go crazy. Let's get
bring Vitor back. Bring Vitor back.
Bro, yeah, dude. What if we could bring back like a prime 19-year-old Vitor Belfort? Just fucking juice to the gills.
Did you see him in his last boxing thing on the
Who did he knock out? He knocked out someone, right? Who was it? Oh no, it was Anderson Silva who knocked out the
dude's in his late 40s, early 50s, man. You know, if anybody knows anything about like anatomy and stuff like that, is like, or your hormone levels are dramatically dropping by the time you get 30. You know, you're dropping down. So
and it's what you've been using for decades. It might happen even faster.
Yeah. That's like when I used to love watching Pride though, because you know they were all just sauced out of their fucking minds.
Ricardo Arona, remember Arona?
Oh yeah.
I think it's cheaper to get juice in Brazil than it is to get whey protein.
I think, you know what's funny? I think I heard that too.
That might be true. Just, you know.
Well, then that's ironic because then you need the protein to build. You're just taking a bunch of steroids.
You just eat a bunch of chicken or steaks or whatever because, you know, they're always barbecuing.
Yeah, that's true.
They're always barbecuing.
They're just always barbecuing.
You want the picanha? Eat the picanha.
You want to get bigger?
Dude, you know what I'm excited about?
What are you excited about?
The Craig Jones, Donald Cerrone combat jiu-jitsu match.
How are you excited about that?
I'm not.
I think that's going to be 2 minutes of getting.
He's going to beat up Donald, bro.
Yeah, that's
you think so? He's going to be that easy? No chance. Zero chance.
Yeah, because Donald's a kickboxer. So, like, what is he going to do? Is he going to? He can't punch and kick him
very hard.
But you can slap him. But he can slap him. Like, I haven't seen too many people get knocked out with a slap in a combat jiu-jitsu match.
You do a combat jiu-jitsu match with Cerrone in like 24-hour notice, right? Just like being average in shape, just for the money, not like a knock at Cerrone, but like that's like a safe match for the average person if you're like a good black belt in jiu-jitsu, especially when you're world class, right? Like Donald Cerrone is not like a ninja on the ground, like he's not like I mean he's a solid jiu-jitsu guy, but like Craig Jones I think is going to.
For Craig outweighs him, you know. And
that's a good point.
Craig's bigger than him and taller than him, you know, so it's gonna play out in his favor. Like if you told me to go against Donald Cerrone in like a week notice in combat jiu-jitsu, I'd be like, no, I'm not in shape for that. You know, I'm not gonna go against him.
How do you think that ends though? Craig Jones heel hook? If he had to play psychic?
I think so.
Triangle.
I think so.
Triangle.
He's gonna elevate him with some wrist control and get him under the legs for sure. I think.
When is that match?
It's like soon. It might be this weekend or next weekend. It's happening soon.
I had no idea that
it's happening soon.
You didn't? Oh, it was a big. It was all over Craig Jones.
I mean, I would put all my money on Craig Jones. I'm a big fan of him. But still, it's like, all right, combat jiu-jitsu. I haven't seen him doing combat jiu-jitsu, so it's like, okay, cool.
Who knows? Maybe Craig Jones gets food poisoning and Donald Cerrone slaps the shit out of him, knocks him out.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
That would be.
Listen, man, you hitting the right spot and you're Donald Cerrone. You might be. Yeah. Fucking at least.
What? But that's you're only allowed to open palm on the ground, right? That's like old school, back before there was even amateur MMA. That was like a lot of the fights were open palm on the ground.
Era and all that. You remember?
Yeah, but back then people used to slap themselves, and now they, now they know exactly how to like. It's like
training how to slap the right way.
It's like
they're hitting probably like boards at their house and shit, like
magua boards, whatever.
Like going back to the karate dojo, sensei.
Have buckets of sand.
You just buckets of sand, like, ground and pounding. Like that would be a funny thing. They should have Donald Cerrone like doing like some Karate Kid shit for fucking like
that dude's jumping motorcycle somewhere is just getting hurt.
Sweep the leg, man. I want to check that out, man. Well, I will let you guys have a life here on Friday. I appreciate you guys coming down and chatting and shooting the shit about jiu-jitsu, man. That's been a blast.
Thanks for having us, man. I appreciate being here. That was fun.